What I have prepared is really a focus on program affordability. So we'll talk through some information about like financial aid and scholarships. We'll also hit on some of the sort of outside the box ways of preparing financially to study abroad in terms of like saving and fundraising and that kind of thing. And then I've also got a focus on Europe. So I'm going to highlight some of USAC's most affordable programs in Europe, as well as just like program costs, a little bit about program costs around the world. And most of the scholarships that I'm going to focus on, or many of them, will be specific to some of our Europe programs, but then I also do have some information just about like general scholarships that students can apply for regardless of where they're going. So I hope this will be useful, and just to let you know, as you all have questions, please don't hesitate to ask during this presentation or also to follow up later. And probably if you have a question, somebody else may be wondering the same thing. So don't be shy about asking. I want to make sure that you get the information that you came to get today. So with that, I will jump right into information about affordable programs with a focus on Europe with USAC Study Abroad. And just to give you, I guess, a little bit of information about USAC, we are one of your study abroad options as a UHCL student, and we have programs in 27 different countries around the world, over 50 programs total, programs for every major. You can do a semester, a summer, an academic year, or in some cases even a winter semester. And we have some programs in pretty unique locations as well. So we'll take a look at all that. Okay, so I've highlighted here some financial information about some programs, and just to kind of talk through some of the most common questions that students have. Great questions related to finances and study abroad. So can I afford to study abroad? Very often there's this idea of like, oh, study abroad is very expensive. It's only for people who have a lot of money. Like, college is already so expensive. How am I going to add a study abroad program on top of that? Is this doable? How much does it cost to study abroad? And as you can see from this graphic here, so I've highlighted the average cost of a semester, and it's showing, around the world, but it is highlighting some of our most affordable programs in Europe as well. So Germany, Sweden, Poland, and the number that you're looking at is showing you the program fee, which is like your tuition, estimates for housing, airfare, visa, food, personal expenses, and so forth. And some of those will vary a little bit, but just to give you a sense of like, you can study abroad for around the same as what it costs you to be in Houston for a semester, or in some cases even less, depending on where you go. And so what you're seeing here is the average cost of a semester. So this would be a fall or a spring. If you do a summer, which is shorter, then that's going to be less because you're there for a shorter amount of time. So this is just to kind of give you a sense of overall cost of what you can expect to pay for a semester abroad on some of the more affordable programs. What about financial aid? And this is where, for any students who haven't yet met with your Education Abroad office at UHCL, you should do that to talk about the process of using your financial aid to apply it to your study abroad program, because very often, essentially your financial aid can go with you, and perhaps any scholarships that you get through UHCL as well. And we'll talk about special study abroad scholarships too. So, and Larissa, feel free to jump in here with any additional information, but yes.
Well, trust me, I have this tendency to jump in like in the middle.
Do it, please. You're welcome to do so. But yes, and it can vary depending on what your financial aid package is or what kind of special scholarships you get and so forth. But these are conversations you should go ahead and have with your study abroad office to begin planning. And it is the case for most students that your financial aid can apply to your study abroad experience abroad. What about scholarships? We're going to look at some of those. And then what's the process for applying for scholarships? What about deadlines? What's the timeline on all of this? And the process. And so we'll kind of take a look at some of those things together. Since this presentation focuses on Europe, so USAC programs, we have programs all over the world: Latin America, Asia, Africa, Australia, New Zealand, and then also across different parts of Europe. And so since I'm focusing a bit on Europe here, I wanted to highlight some of the most affordable programs. Now, one of the things that impacts the cost of a study abroad program, like almost more than anything, really is the cost of living in the place where you go to study. So, and that can be by country, you know, the cost of, let's say, living in, you know, New Zealand or France can be a bit more expensive. A lot of Western European locations can be a bit more expensive than the cost of living here, or they're a bit more expensive than the cost of living, let's say, in a place like Costa Rica or Thailand, where the cost of living is quite a bit lower. But even within Europe, there are countries and there are cities where the cost of living is quite affordable. And that's one of the things that USAC really prioritizes. We prioritize having affordable programs, and where our programs are located also has a lot to do with that. So Eastern Europe is a great affordable place to study abroad in Europe, affordable cost of living, and so that keeps the program cost low. So you'll see that I've highlighted our program in Prague. We also have a program in Krakow, Poland. Both of those really affordable cost of living, and so you can do a semester or a summer in Europe, and it's going to be way less than if you were in like Paris or Rome or London. So the difference in cost is substantial. But even in, let's say, some of your more expensive Western European countries like England, France, Italy, Spain, there are cities where you can study abroad there where the cost of living is going to be lower. Very often it's like going to be your smaller cities, and that's kind of where USAC focuses. So you'll see, like, we have a program in Brighton, England. We also have a program in London, but the cost of living between Brighton and London, like, there's a big difference in cost there. So you can save a lot of money by going to Brighton. Our program in Pau, France, super affordable program in France. It will cost you way less to be in Pau for a summer or a semester than it would if you were in Paris. But, you know, with Europe, a cool thing too is no matter where you are, it's very easy to travel to, you know, wherever it is that you want to go. So you're still going to be able to like hit all of those major cities and see all of the things that you have to see, you know, when you're in Europe. Another benefit to considering smaller, more immersive locations that are outside of the big touristy cities is that you are having an immersive experience. You are having the day-to-day living experience of people who live in this country or in the country where you're studying. And if you're studying a language, this is also a really great benefit because you're going to have even more of an opportunity to use that language on a daily basis if you're in a smaller city where maybe the option to use English is not as readily available. So for those of you studying.
Exactly. It's going to be more challenging, but at the same time, in the long run, it will be beneficial.
Yeah, more. Yeah, exactly. So it will, yeah, you'll have the opportunity to speak the language often, and that's great. So just to kind of highlight, and we're going to look actually at USAC's interactive budget sheet. So on the website, and I put a link to the website in the chat, but for every program page, we have cost information for the program and for the term. You can get a sense for like, what is the program fee, which is like your tuition, what is the cost for housing, what are your housing options. And so I put up here, this is a summer 2021. So I mean, it could change a little bit for summer 2022 for a program in Madrid. I mean, big city in Spain, but you can still do a summer there for a relatively like affordable amount. So what I really encourage you to do is to be open location wise if you can. And when you're thinking about your priorities for study abroad, you know, it's just good to talk through those with your study abroad office and to think about them. So is your number one priority affordability? Is your number one priority location? Or what about maybe it's the classes that you need, or it's the dates? You know, what is it that's really, where are those things falling on your list of priorities? And then I would really encourage you to, you know, check out your options, compare them, compare the budgets for them, and you can kind of get a sense of where, you know, where you can go that's going to be the best fit for your budget and also for your other priorities. But just to highlight, so USAC does have these on every program page, these interactive budget sheets that let you go through. And so you can see here the cost of US dollars. And then for anything that you'll pay on site, in this case, you'd be paying in euros, you'll see the cost in euros and then like what the, you know, estimated exchange to US dollars that is too. And then you'll go in and you can actually plug in the numbers and it'll get you to a final cost for the program for what you can expect to spend. Some of these things will vary, like what each person spends on personal expenses is going to vary person to person. You have on most USAC programs, you have the option to do a group flight or to book your own individual flight. So like if you have miles or if you want to take a red eye or whatever to save money, then you can do that, or you can get on the group flight and it just kind of shows what you can expect to pay. Many of our programs offer the option to do homestay or perhaps live in an apartment or live in a residence hall, and you'll see what those options are here. And you'll also see if there's like a difference in cost or, in this case, like if you're living in an apartment on the program in Madrid, then there's an estimate you can expect to pay for meals because you'd be cooking for yourself in that apartment. So just kind of like give you a sense of everything that you can plan for. And then if you know you have scholarships or financial aid that you're going to be able to apply to your study abroad program, you can plug that number in here and it'll subtract it from the overall cost and help you get a sense of, okay, like what's the amount that you need to be able to come up with and to be able to cover outside of your financial aid, scholarships, or other money that you have to put towards it. So I really recommend that you utilize these budget sheets and to plan. And then also, if you're not sure where you want to go, to compare program costs and to get a sense, because the program fee is a piece of it, but then the cost of living, the cost of housing, what you can expect to pay for food, public transportation, all of that, some of that will vary location to location. All right. So financial aid, we talked a little bit about this already, but just to kind of highlight, it is important to sort of have conversations early about what kind of financial aid that you receive can transfer to your study abroad program. And then also when you're looking at your financial aid package, that can help you understand when is the best term for you to study abroad. So typically a summer program is going to cost less than a semester program because it is shorter. So you're spending less on housing, you're spending less on food and personal expenses because you're there for like 5 weeks instead of 16 weeks. However, some students receive a lot more financial aid in fall and spring than they do in the summer. So like if you get a Pell Grant, typically you're getting that in the fall and the spring, or maybe you receive some scholarships that you only get in fall and spring and you don't get those scholarships in the summer. So it's important to look at not just like when is it the cheapest to study abroad, but when do you have the most aid, financial aid or scholarships to put towards your study abroad program, because you might actually have more funding for a full semester. And in a sense, the longer you can go for, the more bang for your buck you get, because, if you're booking a plane ticket, that plane ticket's going to cost the same if you stay for 1 week or if you stay for an entire semester. So some costs are kind of fixed, but just these are things to think about, things to talk about with your wonderful advisors there in the study abroad office at UHCL, and they can kind of help you talk through your questions around that as well. One thing I will say, and I think a different slide gets into this, but at USAC, so you in the semester that you go abroad, you will be paying USAC for your tuition and all of that stuff. But if you're using financial aid, you'll receive that financial aid according to the same disbursement schedule that you would if you were studying at UHCL for that semester. So if you're worried about like, oh, am I going to have to upfront the whole cost of my program before my financial aid kicks in? We have one of the things that you'll complete whenever you do your USAC application is a financial aid disbursement form. And that's something that you'll take most likely to your financial aid office at UHCL. They'll confirm the amount of aid that you'll receive for the term that you're abroad and the date that it will disperse to you. Then you'll submit that to USAC and we can extend your payment deadline for like whatever the amount of aid is that you're going to get to after you've received your financial aid disbursement, so that you're not having to upfront everything and then essentially reimburse yourself, if that makes sense. Okay. So at USAC, we'll look at some of our USAC scholarships here in just a minute, but so you have your UHCL financial aid. We'll talk about external scholarships. There are very likely some study abroad scholarships at UHCL that you can apply for as well. And then at USAC, we have scholarships for students participating on our programs too. So the way the application process for our scholarships works is you'll complete your regular USAC program application, and then you'll have a USAC portal. And that's where it's like a treasure trove of all the documents and all the information that USAC will give you. And in there, you'll have your scholarship application. You'll fill out one application. It'll ask you questions to kind of determine which of our scholarships you're eligible to be considered for. And then you'll automatically get considered for all of them that you're eligible for. So you don't have to worry about filling out multiple applications for USAC scholarships. You don't have to worry about understanding which ones you're eligible for. The way we have the questions set up, it makes it clear. So we try to streamline that process as much as possible so that you can be considered for any and all that you're eligible for. Most of our scholarships have a 2.5 GPA requirement to be considered eligible, which is the same for most of our program eligibility requirements. So you don't have to have a 4.0 GPA to be considered for a scholarship. Of course, you know, if you have a great GPA, that's good. That's going to help your scholarship applications for all the scholarships. But if you're like, oh, my GPA is not the best, like if that's discouraging you from even trying to apply for scholarships, I really want to encourage you to go ahead and apply, because USAC scholarships and really all scholarships are looking at you holistically, comprehensively as a human, as a student, and they're really looking for, you know, like, what's your story? What are your goals? How well does the program fit with your major or minor or with your future goals? And so the GPA is really only a part of it. For our scholarship applications, you do not have to complete any recommendations. So it's just you filling out the scholarship application. So we try to make it, you know, fairly streamlined for you to be able to do that. Our deadlines are typically, if you're doing a summer or a fall program, in mid-March. Oh, here you can see that our fall 21 deadline was extended to May 1st. And then for our January and spring programs, it's typically in mid-October. So just keep that in mind. You want to have at least applied for your study abroad program by then, so that you can also have time to apply for your scholarships. Okay, so a little bit about USAC scholarships, and I've highlighted our scholarships for some of our programs in Europe here. But I'll actually kind of jump into some of these towards the bottom. So when you apply for a USAC program, regardless of where you go, there are a certain number of scholarships that you will be eligible to be considered for. So we have regional scholarships for all the regions where we have programs. So like if you apply to go to Spain or anywhere in Europe, you'll be considered for the Europe scholarship. If you decide to apply to a program in Korea or Thailand, you'll be considered for the Asia scholarship, and so on and so forth. If you do a semester program, we also have a new Globetrotter scholarship that all students can be considered for. We have an Access, Equity, and Inclusion scholarship. So this is for students who are considered underrepresented in study abroad. So that's first generation college students, students of color, LGBTQ students, students with disabilities, and the whole range. So many students, most probably, can be considered for this Access, Equity, and Inclusion scholarship. We also have a military service scholarship, and that includes active military as well as veterans, and also spouses or dependents of military. So this may include some of you as well. And then we also have a scholarship for STEM majors and minors. And it is possible to receive more than one scholarship from USAC. So whenever you apply, you fill out that application, you get considered, you'll get considered for any that you're eligible for. And if you have a really strong application, it's possible that you could even get more than one. You'll see here too that we have some that are specific to a location or a university. So it's good to be aware of these. And on the USAC website, you'll see the whole list there. But, you know, as you can see, it's possible to piece together study abroad scholarship funding and even get funding from multiple sources. So I encourage you to not just apply for USAC scholarships, but apply for all the scholarships that you are eligible to apply for. Okay, so, and then here's just a little snapshot, and there's a QR code there for our the scholarship section of our website. And also I encourage you, on the last slide, I'll show the link to our blog, but USAC has a blog.usac.edu, which is really great. You can access all kinds of like student stories and student written content. And it's also organized by subject area. So if you know you're looking for a program or you want to read about a program in a particular location, you can search that way. But we also have a whole section about like finances and blog posts that have to do with affordability or like how to study in Spain on a budget or those kinds of things. So I really encourage you to check that out as well. Okay, now a little bit about external scholarships, and this is also information that you can definitely get from your study abroad office there at UHCL. They'll be able to advise you comprehensively about your scholarship options, and we'll look at some specific ones. But the thing about scholarships is really that the application requirements can vary quite a bit. The deadlines can vary quite a bit. And so it is a good idea to start planning to apply for scholarships early on if you can, because some deadlines can be fairly early. Some scholarships may want a letter of recommendation, or in some cases even more than one letter of recommendation, some things that can take you some time to gather. So it's like never too early to start planning to study abroad. It's never too early to start looking into your program options. It's also never too early to start planning to apply for scholarships. So just to kind of give you, some tips about applying for external scholarships is that, there are some early deadlines for some of the big scholarships. Award amounts can really vary. So for instance, the Gilman Scholarship, which we'll talk about here in a second, gives up to $5,000, or in some cases even up to $8,000 if you're studying a critical language. But if you get a Gilman, it doesn't mean that they're going to give you the max amount. Like they may only give you 3 or they may only give you 4. So when you're applying for scholarships, it's good to kind of plan. Don't plan that you're going to get the max of every single one, because even if you get one, they may not give you the max. Clarissa, anything that you wanted to add on your end?
No, I just want to say that you are absolutely correct that the amount may vary. It depends on how soon you apply. It depends on whether with the Gilman, you said, right? It depends on the language. It depends, well, there are many factors. Please remember about all of those, guys.
Yeah, it could be good to even, depending on how you organize your schedule or how you organize your tasks and things, to even have like a checklist and to have those scholarship deadlines on your calendar and everything, and just plan out a time to be to be working on those. The other thing is most scholarship applications will require an essay. In some cases, they even require more than one essay. And I know this can be a really intimidating thing, and it can be one of those things that unfortunately can keep students from applying, because they think like, oh, what am I going to write about? What am I going to say? So I guess what I would encourage you as far as scholarship essays go is don't let that stop you, and know that you have help. Like, you don't have to figure any of this out by yourself. So there's, I'm sure, a writing center at UHCL. There's the study abroad office there. There are folks who can help you with your scholarship applications and with your essays, who can review, who are very familiar with those scholarships and kind of know what the review committees are looking for. So when you're approaching, your scholarship applications, if you're feeling a little intimidated by the essay, you don't have to figure it all out by yourself. I mean, you are the one who will have to write it, but you can have help in that. But the key piece there is that you have to start early, because if you want another person to review at least one draft with you, or ideally even more than one draft with you, you have to give time for that. So take advantage of all of those resources that are available to you. And the other piece I would say about the scholarship applications is that they're usually pretty clear about what they want you to write about. So there's an essay prompt, or there will be questions that they want you to answer in your essay. So I'll encourage you to just take a very close look at that. Once you have applied for one scholarship, it's easier to apply for more, because you sort of have an essay draft, or you have your references who you can use for multiple scholarships. So it's, once you've done one, it's easier to do more. But with those scholarship essays too, it's also very important that your essay matches the prompt for that specific scholarship. So you will have to do some editing for each application that you submit. But it's free money, so it's worth it. It's absolutely worth the effort. Okay.
Guys, I just want to add, like it came to my mind, when you apply for a job, it's the same thing. You prepare your essay, your cover letter. It will be your practice first. Second, always remember that as long as you apply for different positions, your cover letter should be adjusted, should be different. You cannot apply with the same resume and with the same cover letter for different positions. So it's pretty much similar. So basically we are preparing you for your next career step also.
Yeah, that's such a good thing to point out, Clarissa. It's all great practice. Even if you don't get every single scholarship that you apply for, it's all very useful. And all of this will help you in your future,
I
job.
also know that in your resume, again, back to the subject of job search, and in your cover letter, your international, your education abroad experience will look amazing. It will be absolutely a winner.
Yeah, that's true. And there are stats out there that bear that out as well, that show that students who have studied abroad are more likely to get jobs within a year after graduation, tend to start at higher salaries, have a better chance of getting your first pick in grad school. So it really is, an investment in your future. And all of the practice that you are going through to apply for your program and prepare to go abroad and apply for scholarships, I mean, it's all worth it because you're going to study abroad and that's going to be amazing, but it's also helping you build those skills that you'll use later in your career too. So a little bit about external scholarships. I mentioned the Benjamin A. Gilman, which hopefully is on your radar. And this is for students who receive a Pell Grant as part of their financial aid package. So if you get a Pell Grant, this should definitely be on your radar. The Gilman, they give up to $5,000, in some cases even more. So it's a big chunk of change, and it can, be a game changer for students who get this scholarship. The Gilman also, they give out like hundreds of awards. So sometimes I think students see these national scholarships and they think like, oh, what are my chances of getting it? Like, how many of those are they actually going to give out? When it comes to the Gilman, they give out many, many, many scholarships. So if you are eligible to apply for the Gilman, highly recommend that you apply for sure. And the Gilman, they do all kinds of good, like webinars and trainings. They have all kinds of good resources on their website. And then of course, your advisors at UHCL are very familiar with the Gilman as well. So go for this one if you are eligible for sure. The Boren, this is for students interested in studying critical languages. Again, very prestigious scholarship and a big one in terms of the amount of funding that you would get from this one. The Freeman Asia, not for studying in Europe, but I decided to go ahead and leave it. For any of you who are considering applying for a program in Asia, this should be on your radar. And then there's also the Fund for Education Abroad, or FEA. And there are others too, but these are some of the big ones. FEA, this is one where, no matter where you're going, as long as your program is a certain length, and I think it's either 21 or maybe 28 days, then you are eligible to apply for FEA. There's the general FEA scholarship, and then there are some specialized ones as well. And USAC partners with FEA, and we have an access scholarship with them too. So when you apply for an FEA scholarship, if you're doing a USAC program, you can be considered for the general and you can be considered for the USAC, and that just kind of ups your chances of getting one of them. And the FEA gives, I think, $3,000 to $4,000 up to that. So again, can be substantial. So check out all of these as some of your funding opportunities as well. Okay, so to spend a little bit of time moving away from scholarships and financial aid, I know that those are kind of the big things that you think about when you think about studying abroad. And it's good to consider all of your options there. But the reality for most students is that their programs abroad are not going to be 100% funded by financial aid and scholarships. And that hopefully will be a piece of the puzzle for you, but it is the case in most cases that students are having to put in some money from elsewhere, if it's savings or if it's from fundraising or whatever. So it's good when you're thinking about preparing financially to study abroad to sort of like diversify your approach as much as possible, so that even if you don't get some of the scholarships that you're hoping to get. Maybe if you've saved money or put some money together elsewhere, then that doesn't mean, oh, you can't go. You're not going to have like too much money to study abroad. So whatever you can start saving or putting away or just prioritizing in terms of your budget for study abroad, the better off you will be. And if you wind up getting a bunch of scholarships and you were able to save some, that just means you'll be able to do a little bit more traveling or, do some other like fun things while you are abroad. So here are some ideas around working and saving. And I'm sure most UHCL students are already working. Many of you are probably already working more than one job and have financial responsibilities at home. So I understand that being able to put away additional funds for study abroad can seem daunting. I really encourage you to put together a budget and a savings plan. And you may even have like a student money management center or something similar at UHCL, an office that can help you do that and prepare. But every little bit helps. So like, even if, let's say you typically go to Starbucks like a couple of times a week and drop $5 or more on a coffee or something like that, if, whatever you can kick in towards your study abroad program is really going to help you get there. Every little bit adds up. So I, encourage you to think of it that way. Fundraising, it's not uncommon at all for students to fundraise. And it doesn't have to be some like fancy thing. I mean, over the years, I've had students who sold t-shirts or sold like popcorn or had bake sales. One of the most unique, savings plan that I heard from a student, he donated plasma like as often as he could donate, because you get like, they pay you a little bit of money every time you donate plasma. Like that was one of the things that he did to put away money for study abroad. So that option's not for everybody, but
not for everybody, definitely.
Yeah, but that's
disclaimer.
That's a creative way to put aside some money. So, do get creative. And when you're thinking about saving, it doesn't have to be $1,000 or $5,000 that you're putting aside every time. If you can get together $50 or $100 or a few $100s here and there, if it's a garage sale or if it's by doing some extra work or whatever, all of that will add up. So I encourage you to think about it that way. There are crowdfunding sites. So there's sites like Fund My Travel, which is similar to GoFundMe, that are for travel and for study abroad, people who are seeking funding to help them study abroad. I encourage you to check those sites out. And because you can look at the profiles and you can also see how close like to a goal a person is getting. And I think that can give you, if you are considering doing something like that, it can give you some insight into what works and what doesn't. But, those are certainly options as well. And if any of you, in the call, if anybody has like ideas to share here, I would love to hear them. If you want to shout them out or type them in the chat or something like that, because I know that you guys are resourceful. So I just really, encourage you to put, prioritize and put your resources towards your study abroad program as much as you can, as early as you can, and every little bit will begin to help. One thing that we do at USAC is a payment plan, so you don't have to pay the whole thing up front. We can work with you to break it up into multiple payments. When you apply for your USAC program, you'll have your accounts receivable specialist who you'll work with, and you'll have that person's contact information. You guys will be in touch and everything. And all you have to do is like let that person know, hey, I want to get on a payment plan, and they can work with you on that and like the dates for that and all of that to fit your budget and your schedule. So I really encourage you to do that. It's not uncommon for students to wonder, like, can you work while you're abroad? Can you work and earn money? Because I know most of you work while you're in Houston. And so, when you're abroad, you may not be working. And the answer to that, can you work abroad, really depends. The truth is that most students don't work while they study abroad very often because they're only there for a short amount of time. And also because depending on how long you're there, if you have a visa and what is legally allowed for you to do in that country may vary quite a bit. So let's say if you are going abroad for like an entire year and you want to be able to work, you really want to look, and it'll vary by country. You really want to look at what's allowed in that country if you are legally allowed to work. And if so, if there are any regulations around that, like for international students in the US, they can work a certain number of hours, but on campus only. And so there may be similar regulations in the country where you're going as well. So it's certainly, if it's something that you're interested in, especially if you're going to be abroad for a pretty long time, that's something you can research, chat with us a little bit about, because your USAC advisor will be pretty familiar with the visa regulations for your program. But I really encourage you to look into that so that you know what's legal. One thing that I can mention, just for some of our programs in Alicante, Bilbao, and San Sebastian, Spain, there is this unique teaching assistant program that does pay a little bit for students on semester programs in those locations. So I think the way our resident directors there describe it is kind of like you can earn some pocket money. So it's not going to be anything that's going to like make you rich while you're abroad, but it can, it can help you buy some tapas or have a little extra change in your pocket. And that's a pretty unique opportunity on those programs.
And those are English language related?
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. So you would be a teaching assistant, like in an English classroom with kids. Mm-hmm. Get a little bit of money for that. So, and also it's like just a great professional development opportunity, especially if you're interested in education, and a really fun thing too, and probably also a great way to practice your Spanish. Okay, a little bit more on money tips, and I think I've probably covered a lot of these already, but make a budget before you go. And, it can be good to kind of have in mind, like, okay, here's your tightest budget possible, or here are some of the things, like if you get the scholarships, or if, you have a little bit more money, like what are the things that you absolutely want to be able to do or need to be able to do. So it's good to have a budget in place. Research airfare early, and because, flights can really vary. And as I mentioned previously, on USAC programs, on many of them, you have the option to do a group flight, or you can book your own flight. We really want to make, our programs as affordable as possible. So if you have miles, or if you have, something like that can help you with a ticket, that's one way to save a lot of money. Also, checking a variety of sites. You can even sign up for alerts about ticket prices so that you can kind of be watching those. But I'm sure that some of you probably have good hacks for finding cheap tickets. So if anybody, if anybody has anything to share, like shout it right out. Other things to think about, related to money, and you guys will probably all talk about this, in your pre-departure orientation that you'll do before you go abroad, but you'll want to check with your bank to see if they'll be charging you any kind of like international ATM fees, or fees while you're abroad. Many banks don't, or they may be willing to waive those, but those are conversations that you want to have early on. If you're going to be using a credit card, is that going to charge you a fee? Looking into that. And then of course, you'll want to tell your bank that you'll be living abroad for the amount of time that you're abroad, so that they won't think that someone's run off with your card and has gone to France or Germany or something like that. Yeah. So a little bit on money tips there. And then, so what about on site? Just like I'm sure you all know how you can live your day-to-day lives in Houston and do it without spending a lot of money. People are able to live without spending a lot of money in all the places where they live. So there are great ways to save money on food, on local travel, all of those things. And this can be a fun thing to research before you go abroad. Look at the USAC blog, look at other blogs that you can find. I'm sure you'll be able to find good tips for saving money. What's the cheapest way to travel? In Europe, of course, there's a lot of really great train travel, but in some cases, taking a flight is actually way cheaper than taking a train. So researching and knowing some of that can be really good. Cooking or eating out. In most cases, if you can cook for yourself, that's going to be cheaper. But for instance, in Thailand, it's cheaper to eat out than it is to cook for yourself. So it kind of depends on where you're going. In many cases on our programs, if there's a homestay or host family housing option available, then some, or in some cases, even all of your meals might be included in that. So that's another good way to save money there. And so it just kind of depends on where you're going and what the hacks are. But I encourage you to start. It's kind of a fun thing to research, like what are some of the ways that you can live and eat and get around cheaply in your specific location. You'll figure those out for sure. Okay, so a little bit about how to get started. So on the USAC website, you can search for programs a bunch of different ways, by location, by what you want to study, by term, and all of that. So I encourage you to check that out. You're welcome to contact us. I also put my email in the chat. And then definitely, if you haven't already met with your study abroad office there at UHCL, you'll want to do that so that they can give you the whole picture of the application process and everything. All right, and then I've got some contact information there. I told you about our blog. Of course, we're on social media and stuff as well. So Instagram, USAC recently got a presence on TikTok. So check out our TikTok and Facebook and all of that as well. And I'm happy to take any questions that you guys have. I'll stop sharing my screen.
Thank you very much, Courtney. That was just so wonderful to hear all about the options there for students who wants to go abroad, who wants to study abroad. That's very helpful, I would say, and also, of course, challenging, like speaking of the things that we need to, or students need to do before they go abroad. But at the same time, I would like to give some encouragement to our participants to say, like, we have here today Ashlyn Vong, who is our student who is traveling to UK. And Ashlyn, I know she applied for a scholarship. She got her scholarship and she got funding for her education abroad. And basically, it will help her cover partially her tuition fees. And Ashlyn, can you tell us something about your experience? It was UHCL scholarship. Hi, how are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Oh, it's such a beautiful video we have here. You agree, Courtney? Like it's that time of your life when you can say, like, I wake up like this. And you will be totally honest.
Thank you.
Okay, Ashlyn, tell us about your scholarship experience. How was it? And did you participate in the sessions like that or like this before, or you would have to, now you say, like, if I knew that, I would have.
So to apply for the UHCL scholarship, I actually never went to one of these meetings before. But once I was working with the study abroad office, y'all let me know that we do have a scholarship. That's the International Education Fee Award. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, so they had me apply for that. It was really, really easy. All I did was I wrote a 2-page personal essay on why I wanted to go, what personal goals I was going to accomplish. All I needed besides that was a letter of recommendation from a faculty member, and then I think an acceptance from the university you're applying to. And that's all it was. It was really simple, and it really helped me cover almost all the fees that I had to go study abroad.
And I must say it's a substantial amount because the programs in London, they are costly. It's, well, Courtney, you know, you are an expert here. You can tell that it is expensive, and compared to something else like Brighton, you said, in UK. But Ashlyn, I must admit, she was so determined to go to London, to go to UK. And I also must mention that a couple of programs she applied before were canceled, but she kept doing that. And she kept, she was insisting on going to London. So in August, she is.
Congratulations, good for you.
Thank you.
You know, so many students are in your position where you've been trying to go for a while now.
Yeah, then COVID, and it kind of messed everything up.
Well, good for you for being persistent. I'm really glad.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ashlyn. If you can just leave your UHCL email here, so someone who is interested in those should, like, maybe ask you additional details, how you apply. Was it really easy?
Okay.
Thank you. Just leave it in the box, in the chat, and that will be just great. Thank you very much for coming over.
Of course.
Always a pleasure seeing you.
You too.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, bye.
Have a great experience in London.
Courtney, I also would like to remind you about our Fall Education Abroad Fair, and we are anticipating to see you or your coworker or both
Yeah.
of you and coworker and whoever decides to come. That would be great to host you and to introduce you to our students who are planning to go on education abroad with USAC.
Great. Yeah. Yeah. I have it on my calendar and I'm so ready to start visiting universities again and see you all in person and all of that. I'm excited that that will be kicking back off this fall for sure.
Thank you.